Otherwise, how do you see this relationship developing?
Yeah, I think the Saudi-Indian relationship has never been as good as now. It goes back to the legacy of the Arab civilization. Saudi Arabia is the birthplace of Islam, the birthplace of the Arab civilization, and India is the birthplace of the Indus Valley civilization. These countries have been having relations for 2,000 years. We are speaking of 2 millennials. We are speaking of a relationship that has been going beyond even the trade and commerce. We've been, like, for example, in Saudi Arabia, before the discovery of oil, we have had a phrase, and we until now say it. You can bet on India if life is unjust to you. So that's how the Arabs in the Arabian Peninsula, in Saudi Arabia, has been seeing India. Why? Because they see it as a land of opportunity, wealth, and promise. So do we still have the same view? Absolutely. And it has been solidified specifically in 2019 when the Crown Prince Mohammed Salman came to New Delhi and met Prime Minister Modi, and he actually called him his elder brother. Yeah. So Crown Prince Mohammed Salman called Modi as his elder brother. And from that moment, we actually could see that the leadership in both countries are actually having this kind of momentum, and they are patriotic. They love their nations and they want the best for their nations. And that's what we need. We need more realism. We need more pragmatism. We need less ideology. And that's what the kingdom is actually working on. At the same time, when it comes to the Indian-Saudi relationships, we also had something like some very similar challenges. Combating radicalism and Islamist groups. I think Saudi Arabia, specifically with its neighbors, specifically the UAE and Egypt, have managed to change the ideological map of the Middle East by having zero tolerance with extremist elements within our societies, by being very vocal and strong in confronting the Muslim Brotherhood and Islamist movements.
From Saudi. And the second part of my question is about UN reforms. Where do you stand on the UN reforms, particularly on a convention, on terrorism, where the UN has completely failed in the last many years, in fact, I would say many decades, to even define terrorism?
Good. With regards to the UN, before going ahead and speak about the programs to defeat terrorism, etc., with regards to the UN, I've heard some speeches yesterday in the Raisina dialogue with regards to reforming the Security Council. Yeah. As if it was the priority. I actually don't see it to be of high importance for the time being, because at the end of the day, if we think about it realistically, sometimes it's actually somehow comforting for the other 192 nations to have two nations like Moscow or like and Washington DC to not be sleeping on the same bed. Why? Because the moment these two capitals agree on everything, then the other 192 nations will be vulnerable to their decisions. So sometimes having this balance, this strategic balance, should be seen with some positive light. I could be wrong, but the Security Council definitely needs to be reformed at some level, but not now. What needs to be reformed with regards to the United Nations, maybe it's something that we might differ. Why? Because right now, the United Nations, right now, I would not call it the UN, I would call it the UDN, which is the United Democratic Nations. We have no problem with the idea of democracy as a government system. But we have a problem with governments and institutions that would dictate on other systems how they should govern their people. And this is one of the beautiful aspects of India, which is the biggest democracy in the world in terms of population, but at the same time, they never lecture others on how to govern your country. Where we see some Western countries influencing the UN to be taking the idea of democracy as if it's the one and only system. One size fits all. That doesn't work. Logically, it doesn't work. And it actually goes against the spirit of democracy. The spirit of democracy is appreciating diversity. Why appreciating diversity in everything except for the political system? Maybe you think it's the best system. It could be. If for you, for this nation, for that nation, but not necessarily for everybody. So that's actually one of the things that need to be redefined with regards to the United Nations, because we want the United Nations to be in a position where they are equalizers, where they are seeing every nation with a clear view, without actually having these ideologies to be embedded there. We respect every government, every structure, but at the same time, we want the other governments to do the same with regards to our systems. And sometimes, like I remember, I have been asked with regards to a democracy, like, is there like, do you think there will be any kind of democratic move within the GCC, whatever? And I was actually like asking, like, what kind of democracy? Is it like the one in Lebanon, or is it the one in Iraq? We don't want these democracies if it's gonna actually, or the one in Afghanistan that has been imposed by the Americans before. We don't want that. Why? Because it's not gonna go along with our cultural narratives. It doesn't go along with our understanding of governance. That's number one. With regards to extremism, absolutely Saudi Arabia has been taking a large role in that. And Saudi Arabia, throughout the last 7 years, they have been, the government has made Riyadh to be the epicenter and capital of the global efforts to combat terrorism. They initiated the Islamic Alliance Against Terrorism, the military alliance, and also the IWC, Ideological Warfare Center, and also I'tidal, which is the global center for combating terrorism electronically, etc. And they've been doing a massive work with that regard. Zero tolerance with terrorism is the Saudi policy, and we ask everyone to do the same. All the Islamist movements and ISIS, Al-Qaeda, the Muslim Brotherhood should be fought decisively, and we do not want to be lectured from the East or the West on how to fight these terrorists, because right now, unfortunately, we are seeing some countries in the West that are actually telling us that we are being very decisive and very harsh on some of the elements of our community, and we will be telling them, yes, we are, and we will keep doing so. Why? Right. Because we don't want to live in the era of having women to not have their rights because of these zealous and these fanatical elements within our community. It's the time to drain the swamp, and that's the policy of the kingdom.
Salman, Ansari, thank you so much for
Shukriya.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.